On today's edition of the Locked On Knicks podcast, we talk about Landry Shamet being gone for now. Mikal Bridges' shot, is it broken? And Pacom Dadier balling out in the Knicks' final preseason game.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, because we are now available on all platforms. So be sure to tune in 5 days a week, sometimes 6, because I'll wake up really early on a Sunday and realize there's a lot to talk about and decide to do a live stream. If you want to make sure to catch every episode, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell to make sure you get an update every time we go live on YouTube and do an impromptu live stream like I'm doing right now. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform of choice, because every episode will be there as well. And then we'll always be with you on the go. But who is shilling for subs? I'm Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. It is about 6:30 local time here in Arizona, but I realized there was a lot to talk about. Knicks' final preseason game, a 118-117 loss to the Washington Wizards, a fantastic performance from Pacom Dadier. Some worrying signs from Mikal Bridges' jump shot. But before we get into that, we got to talk Landry Shamet, who after sustaining a separated shoulder in the Knicks' second-to-last preseason game against the Hornets, was unfortunately released by the New York Knicks, which is a real shame, because all the reporting on this is that the Knicks really liked him. Tom Thibodeau in particular was pretty clearly a fan. In Chris Herring's ESPN story on it, he mentioned that Thibodeau said he valued Shamet's prior experience playing with Mikal Bridges and campaign, of course, on the Suns, who both joined the Knicks this past summer. So where does this leave the Knicks from a cap perspective? I'm not a capologist, but I'm going to do my best to summarize what I've learned from reading people who are. So essentially what this means is the Knicks are going to start the season with only 12 players under contract at this point. And those are the 12 guys, Jalen Brunson, campaign, Tyler Kolek, Mikal Bridges, Miles McBride, Josh Hart, Pacom Dadier, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims. I shouldn't say 12 players under contract. I should say 12 players on their big league roster. So essentially what the rule is here is like you're supposed to have a minimum of 14 players on your team, but there's an exception to that where you can go up to 28 days over the course of the season without a total of 14 players on the team to give you a little bit of flexibility. And the issue is that the Knicks can only maintain that for 2 weeks at a time, right? So you get 14 days with less than 14 players, and then you got to add someone. But if you don't want to keep them the entire season, you could then cut them, you could relegate them to the G League, and then you could add a different player. And as long as you don't have a total of, again, 28 days, over 28 days with less than 14 guys, that's okay. So essentially what the Knicks are doing here is they're paying Landry Shamet $15,000 pocket change for the New York Knicks for his 1 day of service on the team. And now every day Shamet is not on the team, they are saving $15,000. So basically, they get to save money until Landry Shamet's healthy, presuming that he will be healthy in a timeline quick enough that they can avoid going those 28 days or more with less than 14 players on their roster. If he's not going to be healthy quick enough for that, they would presumably have to go with someone else, or they would have to sign someone else temporarily and then cut them to bring Shamet back down the road, which I think right now is the Knicks' hope. Because, again, I think they really liked Landry Shamet. I think there was good reason for them to like Landry Shamet. I've mentioned it on previous episodes this week, but what he brought to the table from a shooting perspective, a playmaking perspective, his defense was certainly better than I thought. Maybe other people had watched him a lot on the Suns, and I'd watched him in fits and spurts in the past. But I was really, really encouraged by how he defended. I loved, in particular, the Deuce, Shamet, Mikal, OG Cat lineup, I think is exceptionally potent and probably the best version of a non-Brunson lineup this team can put out there right now. I would be interested to see it with Precious in place of Shamet, and you just go all defense and try to smother teams around Cat. But the amount of shooting and like the two-way versatility of that group was really, really exciting. And I think Shamet is by no means an elite defender, but he is super smart coming from that Wichita State system that, of course, produced guys like Fred VanVleet, former Knicks, Ron Baker, Cle Anthony Early. Very well schooled, like sharp on his rotations. And when you're playing with playmakers like Deuce McBride, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, you don't necessarily have to be an elite one-on-one guy, right? Like as long as you know your cues, you're sharp, you can play make a little. We saw that. He had that strip of Anthony Edwards, went coast to coast for a dunk, and then you bring some shooting on the other end of the floor. I think he's a really clean fit. And I think that's why the Knicks are stretching this out a little bit and trying to see or trying to get as much information on his shoulder as possible, right? Because we know last year with Julius Randle, separated shoulder can mean a lot of different things. It can be a really, really deeply tricky injury. And until they know if he definitively needs surgery or not, and just how long the rehab process is going to take, I think the Knicks are trying to play out the string here and not tie themselves up with someone like Marcus Morris or TJ Warren, who I guess could potentially help them. But I think if I was going to put myself in the mind of, to quote the great Greg Jennings video, of a Leon Rose, I would say his thinking here is that while Marcus Morris and TJ Warren could potentially be helpful during the regular season, it could give you a little bit of time. I think it is fairly unlikely that either one of those guys would be in the Knicks playoff rotation because they are just too slow at this point, right? And would be food defensively. And you would see anytime they're on the floor, other teams would go at them over and over and over again, even though they give you some offense, even though they give you some shot making. I think there's some understandable hesitancy to lock yourself in with either of those two and ensure you're getting someone who's probably not going to be a part of your playoff rotation. Landry Shamet, conversely, younger guy, I think like 27, 28 years old, smack dab in the middle of his prime physically. I think there is a world where he gets healthy and he's in your playoff rotation. So what do the Knicks look like? What do they do in the meantime? I should take a screenshot of it real quickly. Bleacher Report did, I thought, a really nice job in their article, like breaking down where the Knicks rotation stands at this point, and what the future holds in terms of that. So at point guard right now, the Knicks, hold on, let me just put this image up so you guys can get it. They have Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, and Tyler Kolek. Still kind of an open question if Kolek is, and campaign, of course, if Kolek is going to be part of the, so Deuce McBride, a two guard. But so Jalen Brunson, campaign, Tyler Kolek at the point, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride at the 2, Josh Hart, Pakum Dadier at the 3, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa at the 4, Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims at the 5 is the 12 you have right now. So the question is, like, what does the rotation look like in 2 nights against the Boston Celtics? If I were to guess, it was not my initial expectation. I think there is a world where we do get Pakum instead of Kolek, even though Kolek is pretty clearly the more ready of the two at this point, I would say. Certainly offensively. And that's not to say Pakum isn't ready offensively and Pakum can't do well offensively, just that Kolek is so ready and so mature on that end of the floor. But if the Knicks want to continue starting Josh Hart, it gets very, very tricky to play Tyler Kolek unless you're starting Josh Hart, pulling him after 4 minutes, playing Deuce McBride for 10 minutes, taking Deuce out, then putting Kolek in. Like, there are ways Tom Thibodeau can fiddle with this rotation to make Tyler Kolek the 9th guy. It is a little bit simpler to put in Pakum because the Knicks very clearly just need a wing at this point. And you probably like the size he brings defensively a little bit more. I've said it before on this pod, and we're going to get into his performance against the Wizards. It was like another, I would say, borderline extraordinarily encouraging showing relative to where he was in Summer League. This is one of the more substantial jumps I have ever seen a player make from Summer League to the regular season. Like, he went from looking like someone who I had my doubts about was like ever going to be ready for the Knicks or was just going to be a really long ways off, and you were just putting a lot of faith in this Knicks player development program that, to be fair, has not left a lot of reason to question them over the last few years. And instead, like, he looks like at 19 years old, like someone who turned 19 like 2 months ago, he looks ready to play. in the NBA to some extent. Again, I just think defensively, as smart as he is, you are always going to be a target at 19 if you are not someone like OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges that is just a precociously brilliant defender. And even those guys would have been targeted at 19. I think the foot speed still has a little ways to go. I think he's a good enough athlete. The scouting report coming out of, I think it was Ulm was where he was playing in Europe, was a good athlete, just not, and like good effort, not always quite locked in enough off the ball, which is an issue against NBA level defenders. A lot of other good stuff he brings to the table that we'll get into. The other alternative for the Knicks, which is maybe where Tom Thibodeau will be more comfortable, is that they play bigger with the second unit, and you get Cam, Deuce, Precious, Jericho, and one of the starters, most likely Mikal Bridges, based on what we've seen. And maybe a little bit of time with OG Anunoby being that fifth guy. And that maybe I'm like overthinking it by saying it's going to be Pacom or Kolek. And maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, and we'll just get two bigs, because generally when Tom Thibodeau is in a situation where he is not 100% sure what he wants to do and does not really have a player that he trusts, he defaults to defense, and he defaults to going really big, right? We saw that stretch 2 years ago where he played Jericho and Isaiah Hartenstein, and the Knicks were winning those games like 88-86, while every other team in the league was scoring over 110 points a game. That tends to be Tom Thibodeau's safety blanket. So that's totally plausible. If I had to guess, though, on night one, I kind of think Pacom might have done enough to have earned that spot. I am really, really fascinated to see who we get, and I'm interested to see how long the Knicks stretch this out. The one other bit of news there is that there was apparently, according to Ian Begley, some interest in making TJ Warren the last guy. The way Begley phrased it, he said the New York Knicks coaches in front office Warren had support among some New York Knicks coaches and front office to make the roster. He is going to join Westchester, SNY has learned, as he'll likely be in the mix to rejoin New York during the season. So it does seem like Warren is ultimately over Marcus Morris, the backup choice here. And if it comes out that Shamet is going to miss months, it would be TJ Warren. And I was somewhat encouraged by his preseason performance. I've said it a bunch over the last few days. The guy is just an elite NBA shot maker. And you see it now, even when he has basically like zero explosiveness. Like he can score with guys draped all over him. And there's undeniably value in that in the second unit. I will circle back to my previous point that I just don't see him defending well enough to really play for the Knicks in the playoffs. But you know what? I could be wrong. You insulate him with enough defense, and there's a world where, like, if the alternative is Pacom, maybe Warren, just by the merit of having been in the NBA for a decade, is still a better defender. Even Pacom physically is far ahead of him at this point. And the Knicks still have Jacob Toppin, Kevin McCullough Jr., and Ariel Hukporti on two-way contracts. Again, still no real update on Kevin McCullough Jr.'s health. I think if he was totally healthy and if he had gotten to play Summer League and had a healthy summer, I think he would probably be the guy that would be in the Knicks rotation right now. Again, he is sort of the best profile with all of his experience. How good of a defender he is, proven shooter at the college level. Like he's the guy who would make the most sense here for the Knicks. But again, with those injury issues, like it seems like he's probably not going to be ready in time to contribute unless it's a lot later this year. All right, guys, a lot more to get into. I want to talk Mikal Bridges, slightly broken jump shot, just because we didn't recap it Friday. Some other final notes from Wizards Knicks, and a little preview of what's to come here on Locked On Knicks. We'll get into all that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. I wanted to remind you guys that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. So what's something that scares you? Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. That is kind of the biggest thing I've learned about myself in years of therapy, that a lot of times, because of like fear of rejection, I won't go for like a job or an opportunity or like something in a social situation because I don't want to get shut down. I don't want to get told I'm not good enough. And that is a way to go through life without ever living life. And that is terrifying to me. And therapy can kind of help you through that, can put it in perspective, and can show you like, hey, sometimes the best thing you can do is just make that leap of faith. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, get BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, what's up, guys? We are back on Locked On Knicks weekend live stream. See a bunch of you tuning in. Really, really appreciate you joining in super early here on the West Coast on Sunday. It is 6:38. I'm a psychopath for doing this. Nostalgic Nick commented, "Is this live?" This is live. Nostalgic Nick. Jay Boogie commented, "Good morning, Gavin," and to my orange and blue fam. He said, "Family, blessings, health, happiness to you always." Oh, that's really nice. Hit that like button as you walk into the building. Salute, salute. Wow. Thank you, Jay Boogie. I really appreciate that. Chef NYK, just get Kolek and Pacome involved. It sets your reach with Warren and McCullough. I feel bad for Shamet, but Pacome is a better choice as well as Kolek. What's up, Nostalgia Nick? Thanks for commenting and interacting. Chef, I hear you. And you know what? There is some merit to the idea of saying like the rookies have the highest ceiling here and just play them. Again, positionally, it is just a little bit difficult with Tyler Kolek specifically because the Knicks have campaign. They have Deuce McBride, and on paper, at least, you are super duper small playing all three of them together, and there's going to be kind of a gross mismatch because you could say, all right, Deuce, go guard your small forward, but then if the bench is like a bigger two guard, like Cam or Kolek are going to get bullied, and Cam is tough. He's going to fight. Kolek is tough. He's going to fight. You're putting yourself in a tough position. Offensively, I don't have any issues with those three playing together. I think it would be fantastic. I think Tom Thibodeau is going to have his reservations about going that small, and I also think he's going to have his reservations about how to maximize Tyler Kolek if he's not on the ball. Maybe you say, hey, Payne and Deuce are good enough shooters so you could play them both off the ball. I am personally a little reticent to say that those three guys are all going to play together. Nostalgia Nick says this team has a lot of issues. Fans won't address the elephants in the room. All right, so I'm going to address the biggest elephant in the room, and that is the guy the Knicks just gave 5 or 6, whatever it was, first-round picks up for. Mikal Bridges looks like he's a little bit of a broken jump shot right now, which is not good after you go 6 first-round picks for a guy. He finished the Knicks' final preseason game 0 for 10 from distance. I'll say that one more time. 0 for 10 from distance for Mikal Bridges. I said on the previous pod, my concern level was like a 2 or a 3 about his jumper. I am up to, I'm going to say 6, 5, 6, 7 on the high end if I have too much caffeine. It's not good. It's not good that the guy you just gave up 6 first-round picks for is looking like he can't shoot all of a sudden. Seems pretty clear to me, and I am by no means a shot doctor. If this continues, I'm hoping we can get someone like DJ Zulo, Benji Ridholtz, maybe someone else from the shot doctoring world that also loves the Knicks to come on the pod and help break it down for us. But what I am seeing from a somewhat novice perspective is an energy transfer issue where he's always had a high release, but what he's been really good at is like a lot of people think you get the power for your jumper through your legs, right? And you do get some of that power through your legs. You get the bulk of it though, I found, through like your dip, right? When you bring the ball down, that's a lot of the power. But then you got to use that energy, right? And instead of like flowing into a shot, which Mikal, I think usually has like a beautiful jump shot, which is why it shocked me, the quote he had to James L. Edwards of The Athletic after this game, that he's been tinkering with his jump shot basically all 7 years he's been in the league. And he said he was trying to get it back to his college shot. And I don't really understand that because I think he has a gorgeous shot with a pretty high release. Not everyone has to be Kevin Durant. It doesn't have to be totally unblockable, but it's not like he's getting stripped all the time, right? Like he gets his shot off. He got his shot off in Brooklyn where he was seeing the best defender on the other team every single night. He's generally going in a lot. He's flat out one of the best shooters for his height, maybe even just period, on planet Earth. So I am really confused why he's altering his shot, because right now you're seeing that energy transfer that should be really clean. And instead of flowing into a shot and pushing forward and going up, he's flowing, putting it over his head. All that energy is gone. And that's why you're seeing his shot short over and over and over again. And there was, we were going to talk about this on spoilers, our crossover with Knicks Film Score, our bold predictions episode. One of mine centers around Mikal Bridges, and what both John and Jeremy said on that pod that I agree with. Like, the biggest fear here is less specifically what Mikal was saying, which is that he's been messing with his shot essentially since his second year, where he developed a little bit of a hitch, trying to get back to his college form, which you can watch. I think his shot the last few years has looked substantially better than it did in college. But even more than just him saying that, I think the concern here is there was like a wobble in his voice a little. Like he seems worried. He doesn't quite seem to know what's going on. And I think where I come down at the end of the day is you expect the guy to figure it out, right? Like he has been in the NBA for 7 years. He's apparently been messing around with his shot for 7 years. It has always turned out pretty good. I know there are some Nets fans, and I maybe should go back and watch and see, that are saying like this has been brewing for a while, and this has been a concern for a while. Like his shot was really faltering at the end of last season. So that's something that is certainly worth looking into. But just again, given the fact that like apparently this has been something that's been going. Oh, I'm sorry, my ESPN is going off right now. This is something that's been a concern for him for a long time. You would expect him to figure it out unless there is an underlying physical issue, like with the whole Markelle Fultz fiasco. Like there was a physical issue. I think he had to, did he have to get Tommy John surgery essentially? Or was it like I couldn't remember. It was a UCL repair. But he had like a really weird, really niche injury, and that is always your deepest fear in these situations. And despite what Nets fans said, I'm looking at his splits now. Doesn't seem like there was any merit to the fact that his shot got worse. So his shot actually got better over the course of last year. He started off last season 33% in just 3 games in October from 3, 35% in November, 37% in December, 38% in January, down to 31% in February. But then he finished really strong, 41.5% in both March and April. In March, he did that over 16 games, taking 8.5 threes per game. Again, I would kind of struggle to see why mess with the shot when you were shooting 41.5% on 8 threes a game. That is $100 million player, right? just off that shooting at his size with his defense. So I'm hoping whatever's going on is temporary and that he figures it out. To me, like mechanically, it doesn't seem like it's impossible to figure out. Like, and I'm assuming the Knicks are encouraging him to not do whatever he's trying to do. Psychologically, I have no clue what's going on. Like sometimes you are just uncomfortable, but I don't really understand how he's been uncomfortable the last 7 years and shooting the crap out of the basketball. So that is where I am today. I think the other fear here is, even if it's not a physical issue, when you start messing with your shot into the regular season, it can get further and further distorted, because you get to a point where you've been practicing one way for weeks and weeks and weeks, which is this weird over the head shot. And then first game comes and you're like, all right, like I got to abandon it. I got to shoot the way I've always shot now. And you end up somewhere in the middle and you just end up searching for a while. So I'm hoping he gets them up. He shot 10 in this game. That's actually encouraging to me that he kept shooting and he took a bunch of them. I'm hoping that the first month of the season looks a little shaky and he's not quite shooting great. Like eventually it clicks in over a high volume of attempts. You just hope this isn't a disaster scenario. And I don't think it's going to be a disaster scenario, but there's a lot of pressure there because you are like, the second the Knicks made that trade and made the Cat trade, like championship clock is ticking now, right? Jalen Brunson is 28 for one season only. You can't waste it on Mikal trying to figure this thing out. All right, we're going to take one more break, and we're going to come back, and we are going to talk some other thoughts from Knicks Wizards, including a monster performance from Pacom, and some slightly concerning signs from the Knicks defense. We'll get into that all next on Locked On Knicks. All right, but first, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL and NBA fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So here's the deal, though. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So I've been telling you guys about the NFL lines. I've been right on my last 4 picks. I'm not going to focus on that right now because the Knicks play basketball on Tuesday night. They are currently 5-point underdogs to the Boston Celtics. You know who we're going to ride with. We're going to ride with the New York Knicks. If they lose, I think it's going to be by less than 5, and I think they have a good chance to come out and win that game, start the season on a high. The good news is, if you want to go against me, if you want to go with me, if you're right or wrong, you get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. So win or lose, it's a win. Again, if you want to get into that, that's FanDuel.com. All right, guys, we are back to wrap up here on Locked On Knicks. Looking at the chat again, Knicks 100 a GM says forget Bridges' shot. What about the fact players going right by him? Knicks GM 100, Knicks 100 a GM. And why do we lose our leading games every time Sims goes out and Ariel comes in? I haven't necessarily noticed that last point. I would guess it's maybe because he's a rookie, but and doesn't know the defensive coverages as well. But I haven't really seen that. I actually think they've looked better when Ariel Hukporti's been out there. Bridges' defense, I think, has mostly been good this preseason. I thought last game against the Wizards was a little discouraging defensively overall, and it's kind of been a theme this season. And I'm sort of struggling to pinpoint, like, all right, is this nothing to worry about? And is this just like a veteran team saying, like, hey, we'll turn it up when the games count? And the defensive playmaking has definitely been there, right? Like look at the first game against the Wizards where the Knicks forced 30 turnovers, right? And they were even stretched against the Timberwolves. The Knicks look fantastic on that end of the floor. But I'm wondering if the Knicks right now are a little bit of like a feast or famine defense. Like I would compare it to an NFL team where they're blitzing all the time, they're getting sacks, they're getting interceptions, they're forcing fumbles. But when you're not doing that, the other team's like meticulously working their way down the field and scoring touchdowns. And it feels like the Knicks are a little all or nothing defensively right now, counting on those steals, counting on OG Anunoby to just be a genius on that end of the floor, which he has been for the most part. He's been fantastic. But right now, it just like the Knicks were like waving at shooters, flying by, giving up easy shots. And that has been a theme this preseason. I thought it was pretty easily Karl Anthony Towns' worst game defensively of the entire preseason, where he was just not affecting people at the rim, like gave up a layup to Kyle Kuzma really early where he clearly didn't want to foul and just kind of conceded it. And at one point gave up 3 straight layups from Marvin Bagley, Jared Butler, Patrick Baldwin, who hit him in the balls for good measure. So that sucked. That's a crappy way for Cat to end the preseason. I think Cat has shown a lot defensively this preseason. Like he is somehow not really my biggest worry right now. Crime's dad says not live. They film it prior and they can't see what you wrote. Well, I'm reading it right now, Crime's dad. So how about that? But anyways, so the defense is a little bit of a concern. I think it'll be tuned up a little bit when the Knicks play the Celtics. So there's going to be a higher level of intensity. I think you're going to see more from Bridges. You're going to see even more from Anunoby. Cat remains the biggest fear, whether he gets into foul trouble or he doesn't play aggressive enough. Again, I would really encourage Tom Thibodeau to mix up his coverages with Cat, let Cat play at the level of the pick and roll, and utilize the fact that you have the best free safety in basketball in OG Anunoby, and that he can at least the best free safety at the wing spot. And he can rotate over, he can block shots, he can alter plays. He's been really good just timing up his double teams. I thought he was just ridiculous in this game against the Wizards. I'm going to see how many steals they credit. I had him at like 4 steals in this game. They credit him with 3 steals and 2 blocks in this one. If you didn't watch the highlights, go back and look at it, because like just from like point 1, he was breaking up dribble handoffs, setting up Jalen Brunson for a transition layup. In the half court, he got a loose ball before hitting Cat on a no-look pass for a layup. Had another one where like there was like 4 seconds left on the shot clock, knocked the ball away, chased it down, then blocked a heave that to try to beat the shot clock buzzer, got it to Cat for a transition layup. Another one where he like kind of helped Cat out of nowhere, got a strip to kick off transition. That was that beautiful passing sequence where it was Cat dribbling up the court, getting it to OG on the wing. OG slipped it into Hart on the left block. Hart threw a bounce pass to Mikal for a layup. That was like the single best sequence the Knicks had all day. Had another one where he was like, it's just the most aggressive I've ever seen him play. Like where he was just chasing a dude, like nearly got the steal. Guy thinks he's a lane to the basket. OG, like the shark to pussy is, comes back in, pokes the ball away, gets it back, wins it in the air, leads another transition. Like if OG and Mikal are going to play like this, teams are going to give up. Not the Celtics, not the Thunder, not the best teams in the NBA, but against lesser teams, you're going to see Knicks end games in the first half because OG is just that smothering, and he's embarrassing guys right now with his defense. So that's really encouraging. Talked about Mikal already. Just need to see a lot more from him. So let's get to Pacome, because I thought I thought this was really encouraging again. I honestly just wanted to see another game where he got time and just got to shoot the basketball, because I don't know about you guys, I was not at all confident in his jumper coming out of summer league. And it just, I don't know how it got this much better. I would love to hear who his shooting coach is. And I would love to get him in a room with Mikal Bridges, because his shot is a thing of beauty at this point. And if he can shoot like that, even if he never becomes a monster athlete, like, he's going to have a 10-year NBA career. If you're 6'8" and you're clearly smart and you have a feel for the game and you can shoot the basketball that way, like, congratulations. You're in the NBA for a decade. You're going to get generational wealth. Your family's set for a long time. And Pacome, it's not just the shooting. He is an exceptionally good cutter, like shockingly good for a rookie. And that is such a valuable skill on this team now that we have Karl Anthony Towns. And you see over and over again, even though Brunson and Cat do not necessarily have all the mechanics and the chemistry of their two-man game figured out to a T, there is a crazy amount of gravity there. And every time they run a pick and roll, you will see help on the nail, right? Like right on that spot on the elbow, there will be a third defender leaking over. And if you're someone like Pacome, gives you a lot of options. You can stay wide and you can hit a wing three, or like he did in this game, you can cut off of it. Brunson hit him, cut right for a jam. Had another nice hit another really nice contested three. Had another layup cutting off of a Tyler Kolek drive. The defense in this game was, I think, a little bit of a wake-up call for those of you, myself included to some extent, who think he's ready to play rotation minutes from day one. Got torched by Jared Butler in transition. I think it's Justin or Julian Champagny. I'm not sure which one, but I know one went to St. John's, one went to Pitt, who blew right by him twice to the rim, once for a layup, once where he didn't get around a screen and he got a dunk. Again, like, Pacome will like, that's not a speed issue. That is knowing what angle to take going around a screen and just adjusting to the fact that, like, in Europe at 6'8", being a great athlete, he could probably be late and take a less than ideal angle coming around a screen and still recover and get back in time and make a great play. Can't do that in the NBA. Guys are too quick, too strong, too athletic. They get you on your hip. The play's over. They're going to the rim and they're putting the ball in the basket. So stuff he has to learn. Maybe he'll learn it in real time. Maybe he won't. Some other quick hitters. Again, Cat, not a great day for him. The shooting for Cat is like, the form looks fine, but he's also been short on a bunch of shots. He also shot like 18% from three. I don't really have any concerns with him. I think he's going to be just fine as the season goes along. You would hope the shots start falling against the Celtics, because I do think part of the reason you get Karl Anthony Towns is that Boston could outplay you and he could come out and hit 8 threes and it doesn't matter, and the Knicks still win the game. Would be really nice if we got that Tuesday night. Jalen Brunson, I love this when Bub Carrington was like pressing up on him, trying to make a name for himself, and Brunson just sort of scoffed, went right by him and got a layup and just kind of physically bullied him. Brunson looks totally ready for the regular season, put up 27 and 5 in 28 minutes, 10 for 15 from the field, 2 for 4 from three, 5 for 5 from the line. He's totally ready. Worth noting on Cat, still at 22, 12 and 4 in 30 minutes, despite going 0 for 5 from three. And he has been really, really aggressive, bullying his way to the free throw line, 8 for 10 in this game. I hope we continue to see that. If you get the free throw shooting and you get the threes, he's going to have a lot of 30-point games. Josh Hart, still like not a lot to do. Had one great defensive play where he single-handedly broke up a 2-on-1, stunting towards the ball handler in transition, switching back to the second guy after the ball handler gave up the ball. Guy tried to do a reverse layup. Josh Hart pinned it. Needs to see the ball more. Had comments after the game saying like he doesn't really know what he's doing offensively right now. I think there are subtle ways that he is contributing a lot. I think there is some merit, as if I missed it, I talked about on my my last podcast with Jeff, that there's a lot of merit to Deuce McBride starting and Josh Hart coming off the bench. And that is another iteration of the Knicks rotation we might see. Shout out to Tyler Kolek, 2 monster takes late in this game. You go back to his summer league time. You go back to what we've seen this preseason. The guy just has a propensity for getting clutch buckets late. Had a great one coming off an Ariel Hukporti screen where he put a defender in jail, booty jail, as they used to call it, with Emmanuel Quickly. Got to the rim, hit a runner. Had another one where he, again, got to his left, like Statue of Liberty take into like a hook layup off the backboard. gave up a couple baskets to Johnny Davis late, who's been in the league for a while. So you give Tyler Kolek a little bit of leeway there. Hopefully we get to see him at the start of the year. I really just love watching Tyler Kolek play basketball. We got 15 more comments here. Nostalgic Knicks think Pacom is the potential to be the best defender, maybe in like 5 years. So yeah, a lot of good stuff, a lot of tough stuff. Praying that Mikal Bridges jumper is an issue. Praying also, I forgot to mention this, Precious Achiuwa went down with a hamstring, though. He was tweeting about the Mets after the game. So I'm hoping that means he's okay. Knicks definitely need him to start the year, right? If you can't be without him and Landry Shamet, there's just not enough on your bench at this point. And that was the danger of the Knicks making the catch, right? That they gave up some of their depth. They gave up some of their insulation against injury. So you really, really hope he's okay because he had a great preseason. He had a pump and go jumper in this one. His skill level has looked to have made a leap. And I think he is maybe going to be the Knick that has the best season relative to expectations. I'm really, really, really excited to watch Precious Achiuwa play basketball. I hope Tibbs gives him some run with Karl-Anthony Towns. I hope he gets to run some pick and rolls with Jalen Brunson because he is scary going downhill. And the Knicks don't have anyone else like that on the roster right now, outside of Huck Porty, who may or may not play. But that is it because I have a full Sunday planned. I'm sure you guys have a full Sunday plan, but I really, really, really appreciate all of you who are nice enough to join me on a Sunday morning. Let me know if you like this in the comments. I can make this a regular thing throughout the regular season where we do like a Saturday or Sunday morning stream. I think it could be really fun to get an extra episode in during the week. And little promo here. We did a 3-part bold prediction special with Knicks Film School. If you've been following along with the pod for a while, we do that every single year with our friends over at Knicks Film School. Part 1 is now up on the Knicks Film School feed. So right after you finish this episode, be sure to go and tune into that really fun episode with John and Jeremy. And then 2 parts coming on the Locked On Knicks feed. First part dropping tomorrow, Monday morning. Second part dropping Tuesday morning. And then Alex and I will be back with you Tuesday night for the first game of the season, Knicks Celtics. Again, we really appreciate all you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Knicks.